my fellow students, and all fellow members of the university community. Today, as never before, the university as we know it, and California public higher education generally, are seriously imperiled. We are threatened with tuition and crippling budget cuts. Last Friday, Dr. Clark Kerr, a man who firmly resisted these assaults and defended academic freedom, was abruptly fired. As a result, a dark shadow has been cast upon the university's future. It is in response to this danger that this meeting has been called, that we might consider the dangers and might develop an adequate response. I would like to call first upon Al Weisblatt, who is an undergraduate and a vice president of the Upper Division Men's Honorary Society. The sun riseth and the sun setteth, but the earth abide forever. Stop. Each man please pause and ask which way his life is turning. Place a question mark on that which is around you. The fleeting second that man is given should not be lost in ignorance. Society is not a nameless mass. It is made of one and yet another one. And you are that one. Do not fear to call yourself the breathing, smelling, stinking, loving, maybe even sweating society. Do not fear to taste a slice of life. Stand up to ignorance. Let knowledge wipe it from our path. Is there a man so strong who can stand before you and say, I will teach you what to think? If the right to think is lost, then I ask you, where is our America? Education is the key to a great university. Clark Kerr held that key. Under his guidance, the University of California did double in size, quadruple in stature. Here was a man brave enough to answer life's challenge. Now, I did not agree with the man's every thought, but I do respect that man. He was a man who, at the time of the Berkeley free speech movement, did not shirk, did not run away. If you could picture a crowd of 5,000 screaming students, pounding on their seats, bellowing for their rights, and then through that crowd comes a man, slight in build, maybe 5 feet 10 inches tall, and wearing this double-breasted blue suit as he always wore and the Ben Franklin glasses, and his lips were quietly closed. He spoke to those students. He sought an answer. He did not think that freedom was spelled differently for students. Here was intelligence. Here was a man. He is with us no more. The university is not a political sandbox. It is not an elevator to the White House. It is not a teething ring for men with ambition. It is left with the Board of Regents to provide a home for intellectual enlightenment. They are the knights who must ride forth for the university into the political battleground. Their armor of late has tarnished.
They have dropped the lance for a moment that will weigh heavy in history. Will they engage the enemy ignorance? Will they lay a charge for knowledge? Tomorrow the battle starts again. America is a land built upon a dream, a hope for the common man. And how does that man dream but through his child? It is the possibility of a tomorrow. The prayer that his son may touch a beauty that a father never sees. Tuition will stop that prayer from breathing, will choke the common man. Does a democracy grow strong when bred on ignorance? Do we have no longer need for thought in our society? Do we slap the child who dares to think? If we cannot afford the university, what is the cost without it? The cave belongs to yesterday, but where do we sleep tomorrow? Are we a world of blinded men, or do we only shut our eyes? The womb is far away, but life beats all around. Torches have been set to the fortress of enlightenment. The fire is raging. Will we stand by and warm our hands on the burning embers of education? The day has turned to dusk. The sun is passing from the sky. Perhaps we die in darkness.
Our next speaker will be Bob Michaels, undergraduate student body president.
The firing of President Kerr was a culmination of a number of events that seemed to be leading to the eventual downfall of this greatest of universities in the world. Right now, something must be done. We're faced with a tuition. We're faced with an eventual budget cut. Its effects are going to be that some of you are going to have to leave because you won't be able to afford to attend this university anymore. Some of you will be lucky enough to get back into a state college or a junior college. But you won't be there for long because property taxes are going to go up and you'll have to be thrown out of the junior college as well. Enrollment's going to be cut here. New students are not going to be allowed to come in. Things are going to happen. Things that such as new students won't be able to come in. Perhaps they'll have to tell sophomores and juniors that you'll have to live in the dormitories in order to pay off the dormitory debt. Other things like this. Industry might move away from California, or we might not be able to attract industry as it is now. Professors are leaving the university and will continue to leave. It's presenting a problem, the ramifications which none of us can conceive if it continues to progress in this way. What can we do about it? We're students. We're students faced with a problem, the problem of staying in the university. Over the weekend, over the last 2 weeks, we've come up with a number of things for us to do. Primary on our list is the formation of an organization, a California Federation of Students, to unite all students to fight this common battle that's facing California. It will be the role of this federation to, as of this moment, unite all 9 campuses in student bodies, in student governments, in organizations of all types. To move out from here, to unite the state college campuses. To move out from there and unite every campus and university campus of higher education in this state. To show the people of this state that we are interested in education, that our primary purpose here is to continue the high quality of education, to enable us to go out and become the fine citizen that everybody wants us to become. At this moment, this same announcement is being made on all the other 9 campuses. We're going to ask you to work with us up here who are student leaders, to work with your elected student leaders who are in the audience who are going to come up and do something in a minute. We need money. Everybody needs money for everything, but we really need it for this. We've got to organize. We've got to work. We've got to start a publicity campaign to show the people in California through the papers, through billboards if that's the way they want it, that we are students who want to get through school and we want to get to school the way that other people have. People are proposing a tuition on us. Perhaps we should suggest that if there is a tuition, we make it retroactive so that everybody in the state who has gone to this school can share in the support of our education. We need to unite, we need allegiance to a cause. This cause will be this federation, started by students of all political and all philosophical beliefs toward the common cause. I'm going to ask you again, we do need money. We don't need small amounts. We need dollars, we need $5. We need contributions from organizations, from fraternities and sororities and dormitories, and we need people to go out and solicit these funds on campus. We also need people to continue the organization that we've begun over the past week. We need people to carry on our statewide publicity campaign. We're going to urge each of you to send an individual political telegram of public opinion to regions, to state legislatures, not necessarily to our governor. There's already a very strong united campaign going in the other way that we don't need to fight. To Jess Unruh, who has taken our cause. To the regions, who are going to make the final decision as to whether or not we have a tuition, probably within the next month. Let's show them that we're concerned. Let's show them that education is our goal and that we want to continue with the same fine quality and the same principles as we have now, even though they have already cut us off from our leader and the man who stood for our principles, Clark Kerr. This Saturday is going to begin a district canvassing campaign of the Los Angeles community, something that has gone on and it's going to be continued. We'd like you to mobilize. We'd like you to meet in Meyerhoff Park or in front of the Student Union, to go out, to have to begin the campaign to sell the university back to the state that's forgotten with the great things the university has done, and for some of those people who have forgotten that they came from here, and because of this university, they're enjoying the success that they have today. We're going to call for a day of meeting and a day of organization and a day of discussion this Friday. Friday at 12 o'clock all around campus. We'll take time out to organize. We'll take time out for some entertainment, for some fun and some music, but to campaign, to show the state that we're planning ahead, that we are organizing, and that we're going to go out and carry through this campaign successfully. That we're not going to be stopped, that we're going to strive and succeed at making sure that the budget is not cut and that we don't have a tuition. There are lists passing around, there are buckets passing around. Sign up to work, contribute to the support of this federation. One last thing that will be carried on later. When we leave here, we're going to take our proposals, 4 of them. 1, that there be no tuition. 2, there be no budget cuts. 3, that we be consulted in the selection of the next president of this university. And 4, that students be included on the high governing boards of the entire university system, as well as this campus. We're going to take these and we're going to take them to the administration building. We're going to present them to our chancellor to carry forth for us to the regents. Let me end on a note that Mr. Thomas Braden, who has just recently lost his post and is left, said a few days ago to the California people, that quote being, "California should fear ignorance more than taxation." Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. We'll hear next from Andrew Economos, the president of the graduate students at UCLA.
Max Rafferty, one of our state leaders, said that there ought to be 3 classes of students who should pay tuition: the out-of-state, the wealthy, and the graduate student. I still haven't been able to make the logical connection. Some members of our economics department have said that the present system is serving to transfer the wealth from the poor to the rich. Their analysis is based on not the student's income level, nor whether the student is dependent on his parents or not, but on the parent's income level. And when this is extrapolated to the graduate student, it becomes completely irrelevant. One section of our academic community that will be hurt the most by such a tuition would be the graduate student. He's on his own financially. Usually he has given up quite a lot to come back to the university, often taken an RA, a research assistant, or a teaching assistant job at far below poverty level of something less than $3,000 a year. And he makes a significant contribution to the university. These people are not freeloaders. They're making a long-range investment. They have extreme academic and financial burdens to carry. We are not asking for charity, and we're not asking for pity, for we're making an investment that's to our own interest. What we are asking for is the state to exhibit wisdom, for this is also in California's interest. Graduate students, as all students, are on a go now, pay later basis. We go to school now. And it isn't that we are enjoying a free higher education. We are making a significant economic investment in incidental fees, books, rent, food, etc. These costs are the same to us as they are to all citizens of Los Angeles. But we pay this money back that the state invests in us. We pay it back through our technological contributions, our academic contributions, our productivity. We also pay it back very directly in taxes. I'm asking that the graduate students realize that this is also their fight, and that they resist this kind of short-sighted economy, that they get out and they try to convince fellow Californians that the university is the best investment California has ever made.
Thank you, Andy. Our next speaker will be Associate Professor of Political Science, William Gerberding.
We gather here today to honor Clark Kerr, and to express our commitment to a free and distinguished University of California. We will serve these purposes by respecting the things Clark Kerr respected and served: reason, freedom, the pursuit of truth. We will dishonor Clark Kerr, and we will hurt the university when it is most vulnerable by yielding to unreason, to passion, and to demagoguery. The university is in trouble. We can help it, or we can hurt it by what we say and what we do, and what we prudently refrain from saying and doing. We can strengthen the hand of those who want to protect and sustain the university, or we can strengthen the hand of those who, wittingly or not, would damage and weaken the university. If gatherings such as this one and those to come are to serve purposes other than the blind expression of hostility and fear, then we should ask ourselves why the university is in trouble and what can and what cannot be done about it. Understandings of the salient facts differ. None of us is in a position to see the entire picture clearly. Here is my more or less well-informed appraisal. Regarding tuition and the budget, the situation is fluid, unpredictable. The governor cannot impose tuition or reduce the budget by himself. He needs the cooperation of the regents and the legislature. Nobody knows what they will do. What we do, the way we conduct ourselves during this time of trouble, will affect their decisions. Manning the barricades will only make matters worse. Offering reasoned and supportable statements and projects will help. I was very pleased to hear Bob Michael's proposals about the student organizations that are being formed, and it is my fervent hope that those organizations will be controlled by people like Bob Michaels, who are sane and sensible and whose interests are the university, not their own exhibitionism. I hope you survive that endorsement, Bob. Regarding the dismissal of Clark Kerr, it is possible, of course, to attribute this to the malign machinations of the new governor. And some of his more militant and anti-intellectual supporters. But this is less than a half-truth. The Board of Regents has been close to firing President Kerr more than once in the recent past. The election finally gave the anti-Kerr forces enough votes to oust him. The important thing for us to remember right now is that many regents besides the governor, and for very many and varied reasons, wanted to get rid of President Kerr. How did this happen? How did a man who is generally regarded in this country and abroad by well-informed people as one of the outstanding educational administrators of our time, how did he find himself so beleaguered and expendable? How did those who do not understand what a great university is manage to find enough allies to fire this esteemed man? If we want to be self-indulgent and foolish, we can point the finger at businessmen regents and an allegedly Philistine society. But this fact and these facts do not explain how these very same people built and sustained this greatest of all public institutions. Let's be honest. Let's look close to home. Let's look at the university community itself. I offer you two recent manifestations of attitudes that have been conspicuous in university life in recent times. Some prominent Berkeley radicals, on hearing of Kerr's ouster, issued a manifesto which declared, "Good riddance to bad rubbish." Ponder that statement and ask yourself whether its authors are more interested in the University of California than they are in other political objectives. A few months earlier, the sentiments of an unfortunately large and vocal minority within the university were perfectly expressed by a prominent and brilliant dissenter on this campus who proclaimed that the forthcoming state elections in California were a matter of complete indifference to him. The seeds planted by these people have borne their bitter fruit. These false prophets are now prepared to lead us into further futile and destructive crusades. But this university does not exist in a vacuum, and it will not survive as we know it if the millennial and naive prescriptions of fanatics and utopians become the guides to action for the rest of us. Those of us who admire and respect what Clark Kerr stood for cannot allow the radical left opponents of Clark Kerr and what he stood for to continue to be the most visible elements of this university. Their hysteria has given the radical right opponents of the university this long-awaited chance. Their style of protest, student strikes and boycotts, riots and demonstrations, unbridled demagoguery and political nihilism, this style will strengthen the hand of the newly powerful. This will strengthen the hand of the newly powerful who want to punish and/or fundamentally change the university. Let us resolve instead to strengthen the hand of those in the legislature and the Board of Regents who understand what a great university is. They are the ones who can save us or destroy us. Let us make our convictions known. Let us make it clear what a tragedy Clark Kerr's ill-conceived and ill-timed dismissal is. But let us do it in a dignified, reasonable, and effective manner. Let us help, not hurt our cause. Instead of demagoguery, let us choose careful and reasonable statement. Instead of hysteria, let us choose analysis and guile. Instead of action for action's sake, let us choose traditionally successful means of persuasion and influence. Instead of fear, let us choose courage and hope. The next few weeks and months are among the most important in the history of the University of California. Comparatively speaking, and with some notable exceptions, the conduct of the UCLA community during this prolonged and continuing crisis within the university has been characterized by maturity and civility. For the sake of this university, let's keep it that way.
Thank you, Professor Gerberding. I would next like to introduce Raymond Goldstone, who's a graduate student in law and who is the chairman of the Chancellor's Advisory Committee on the Uses of the Incidental Fee, who will offer a somewhat different interpretation of the actions of the Regents last Friday.
Ladies and gentlemen, no institution of higher learning can become great or remain free if it is subject to political or politically ignorant leadership. Nevertheless, Ronald Reagan and a majority of the Board of Regents have brought the university under a vicious political attack, and it is surely time that we come to our own defense. The Regents have been charged by state law with the responsibility of protecting the university against partisan political influence. I charge that the 14 Regents who voted to dismiss Clark Kerr abdicated this solemn obligation. One might immediately ask if they did so as an offering at the altar of political expediency. Of this we cannot be sure. But assuming for the moment that the 14 were not politically motivated, we are left with but one other equally repugnant explanation. The 14 were simply irrational. Did the 14 not realize that their action would be construed as politically motivated, or were they just irrational? Did the 14 not realize that their action would seriously jeopardize the university's vigilant efforts to retain the talent not already lost as a result of Governor Reagan's announced determination to cut the budget, or were they just irrational? Did the 14 not realize that their action would seriously hamper the university's efforts to attract new blood, or were they just irrational? Indeed, did the 14 not realize that their action would threaten to shatter the high standing of an institution vital to this nation's progress, or were they just irrational? Whether it is that the 14 sold us out for political reasons, or were simply irrational, they clearly did not fulfill their solemn trust to the people of California. And for this I condemn them. Let us not, however, forget the 8 regents who had the foresight and courage to stand firm against the mindlessness. Samuel Mosher, Norton Simon, Einar Mohn, William Roth, Mrs. Edward Heller, Frederick Dutton, William Koblenz, and Assembly Speaker Jesse Unruh. Clark Kerr is gone, but let us hope that with these 8, with our support, that they can restore at least a modicum of responsibility to the deliberations of the Board of Regents and lead the way to a resounding defeat for tuition. Let us hope that these 8, with our support, can rekindle on the Board of Regents the spirit of academic freedom. And let us hope that these 8, with our support, may have the will and resolution to speak out publicly in statements ringing with rededication to the principles that have made this university the greatest of its kind in the world. It has been said that the hottest place in hell is reserved for those who in time of moral crisis retain their neutrality. Those who are concerned about the future of the university and the future of education in California can be neither neutral nor passive. We must act immediately and decisively to convince the regents, the legislature, to be sure all of the people of California, that support of the university is their responsibility and in their own best interests. And if we cannot, one of the world's most distinguished institutions of higher education will surely continue to be undermined and eventually rendered impotent.
Thank you, Ray. Our program is likely to extend somewhat past 1 o'clock. It's been suggested, however, that if your professor is worth listening to, he too is probably here. It is my honor now to present and introduce Dr. Hans Rager, Professor of History.
A number of you and a number of colleagues as well came to me a relatively short time ago asking that I speak at this meeting to represent a faculty view on the dismissal of Clark Kerr. I must make entirely clear that I speak only for myself and that I have no way of gauging at this point how representative my view is. Nor am I certain how much comfort I can give you by what I'm about to say. It seems clear to me that the action taken at the Regents' meeting was precipitate and undignified, to say the least. I also fear that it is irreversible. In light of these facts, what is it that we can or should do? We should, in the first place, indicate to Mr. Kerr our appreciation of what he has done for this university over many long years, and our unhappiness at the unceremonious way in which one of the most important figures in American education was shown the door. We should, in the second place, make clear our strong feeling that education and politics do not mix, that the intellectual enterprise in which a university is engaged is a continuous one, and that it must be sustained at a constant and unvarying level of support. We must, in the third place, as individual citizens of the state, let our fellow citizens and our governors know that whatever the reasons may have been for the dismissal of Clark Kerr, the impact of that action on the country's scholars will be very harmful. Our problems in recruiting faculty have been great. They have not been made easier by the action taken on Friday or those preceding it. Since we cannot realistically expect the reinstatement of President Kerr, we must ask again and again that the state and the Regents do everything in their power to convince us, to convince the academic community and the larger community that what has happened is not a sign of anti-intellectualism, that the commitment that this state has made to free higher education of high quality remains a solid one. The best that we can do to show support for Clark Kerr is to ask, is to insist that the values he represented have not been abandoned. Only in such a way is there hope that the harm done this university can eventually be repaired.
Thank you, Dr. Rogert. We'll hear next from Neil Reichlein, editor of the Daily Bruin. I had a longer speech prepared, but I'm a little bit upset about some of the things that have been said here today. And I'm going to direct some of my remarks to them. I'm supposedly one of these small vocal minority types, one of these utopians I think that Professor Gerberding was referring to. Let's assume that without debating the point, and let's talk on the basis of that. People like me, I suppose, have warned for years, time and time again, that students can't be expected to think if they're not allowed to inquire, that a student can't be expected to decide anything if he's not allowed to act. We have warned that a university which treats its students as something less than people will discover that its students will treat that institution as something less than a university. We have warned that adamance in defense of convention would yield only rebellion in return. But for years, these prophecies have been all but ignored. We tried, Professor Gerberding, to create viable student governments. We tried to arouse our professors. We tried to negotiate with deans and administrators. We tried to persuade our public leaders and convince the nation's press. We tried all of this, and still the response has been inaction and reaction. And it's culminated It's culminated today in this travesty which is being perpetrated on all of us and on the people of California. If we act in any way, and excuse me for snarling, I'm upset. If we act in any way, we are branded irresponsible. We are called immature, brazen, tactless, alienated, spoiled, and unruly. We are condemned because we feel too strongly that a university should allow its students to speak beyond its walls and to breathe within them. We're tired already, at least I'm tired, of hearing state administrators and regents looking upon students as some sort of marionettes who can be dangled through their education. I'm fed up with being put off year after year, of getting promises every spring and retractions every fall. I don't think we're idiots. I think we know when we've been had, and we've been had. I don't think we're planning any kind of a revolution here. We're trying to act like human beings. We're trying to have the opportunity to live lives as good human beings. Now, we're all here now, and the press is here now. I suggest, as Bob Michael suggested earlier, that at this point in time, we all march at the end of this meeting up to the administration building. I understand Chancellor Murphy will be there, and present him with our demands, our requests, and let's list our demands. 1, we will not accept tuition. The people of California, for number 2, cannot accept a budget cut if they expect to have a great university. We must very sincerely ask for, as number 3, a permanent student voice on the governing body of this university, because nobody's speaking for us now. And I suggest very sincerely and without any malice of thought that we also ask for a role in selecting the next president of this university. I don't think we should stop there. We've heard proposals for statewide organizations, and I'm all for statewide organizations. It's important that we get together so we have some base to operate. There are 80,000 students at the University of California, and at this point, we're powerless unless we get together and we unite and we make strong statements, and we make statements in unified efforts to the regents and to the administration and to the legislatures. I just want to say one more thing that I think all you cats are waiting for. I suggest that we go this far this week, that we march to our administration building, that we hold this meeting next Friday, that we raise money for this battle. But as you well know, the regents are deciding on tuition at their next meeting in February, 1 month away. Now I'm going to ask you, and I would like you to reply to the press that's here, if the regents decide to have tuition, I don't think we can have meetings. I don't think we can have rallies anymore. I think we've got to make a very strong statement. Now, how do you feel about that, if there is tuition decided at the next regents meeting? Mixed opinion, wow. That's all I have to say. There will be one more speaker, and then there will be a procession to the administration building. I'd like now to introduce as our last and final speaker, Joe Maislish, who's a graduate student and is the chairman of the UCLA Committee for Free Higher Education.
Time is limited, so I'll be very brief. One of the reasons that a campaign of attack on higher education in California has been possible has been, as you've heard today, that the regents and the other powers in higher education in the state have helped prepare the way for this attack. They prepared the way for this attack by running the university as if they were a closed clique running their own empire. They've taught the people to be suspicious about what goes on in higher education, and we can't blame them. We're suspicious too. One of the things that we can do to start right away this week, reversing this trend of suspicion and misunderstanding, is by carrying our understandings of our educational experience, what it means to us, what these proposals mean to us, to the people of Los Angeles. This may serve as a model for the way students can carry on such a campaign throughout the state. Saturday morning at 10 o'clock in front of the bookstore, please meet. Come ready to talk, ready to take fact sheets out into the community, ready to speak to people about what your education means to you now and what you want it to mean to you, what you want this university to be. This is one of the activities, and one activity that's essential that we get started now. Other activities, I will just summarize now. There are tables outside as we begin the march, which will begin in just a moment when the chairman announces. Please sign up for committees that you feel you can work on. Publicity, legislative work, contacts with people. We need everyone's imagination working full time. The effect of letters is hard to measure. Just one note. Last week, a political analyst wrote that Governor Reagan was being approached by Republican legislators who had masses of letters, and they were asking him, how do we respond to these? That's the kind of thinking we want the man to do. It's good practice. Let's write, and let's get other people to write. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Thanks to all our speakers. Thank you all for being here. This is a critical time for the university. Let's don't lay back and go to sleep. See you all at the administration building.